and welcome back to my channel. My name is Rita, thank you for joining me. So today I wanted to chat through with you my summary of my second trimester of pregnancy. For those of you who have been following me, you may have seen my first trimester summary. If not, I'll link it up here, where I go through week by week of the symptoms that I've been feeling, new experiences, any scans that I've encountered during the trimester by trimester periods. And so in the second trimester, at the 20-week mark roughly, you also get an anomaly scan, which is your halfway scan through pregnancy. So towards the end of this video, I'll be sharing my experiences of my anomaly scan, how long it took, what the sonographer looked for, what they scanned for. But more excitingly, I'll be sharing scan photos of my little one. But for right now, let's jump straight into the video and go through the week by week summary of my second trimester. So I've been writing down in my notebook week by week of all the things that I've been encountering, symptoms, good and bad, what I've been feeling, highs and lows, moods, etc. So for those of you who aren't quite sure, the second trimester starts from week 13 and runs up through and including week 27. And that's how the NHS have outlined it. And that is what I've been following. I know that depending on where you live, some of the weeks and some of the trimester periods are slightly different from country to country, or depending on what resources you've read. But for this, I've been following the NHS guidelines on that. So today I'll be going through week by week from week 13 up until week 27. So starting at week 13 of my pregnancy, this is the week that I was feeling very sick still. I was getting a lot of pregnancy nausea. I like to call it pregnancy nausea because it wasn't morning sickness as such, being the fact that it wasn't solely just in the morning. I seem to experience my sickness a lot in the afternoon and in the evenings as well. So that is why I refer to it as pregnancy nausea. And for me, during this week, it was quite bad. I was going to the toilet frequently, waking up through the night, having a lot of interrupted sleep, which made me feel very tired during the day. And I was also beginning to experience lower back pain. Similarly to lower back pain when you might get period cramps and that kind of feeling. I guess it's just as your body is changing, the hormones relaxing are flowing through your body, everything's becoming a bit looser, your posture might be changing with the growth of your baby, the expanding uterus, etc. I was beginning to experience signs of lower back pain at this stage. Moving on to week 14, I was getting less sick by this stage, still quite sick, feeling nausea around the dinner time mark. So I was having quite a bit of a loss of appetite during my meal times. And this was the week that I also experienced quite a low mood. I just felt that everything was kind of getting to me, getting on top of me. I mean, it wasn't very long lasting. It was just a few days where I was just feeling a bit blue, I'd say. Nothing to be overly worried about, but I think it's just the change in hormones. It just affected me a little bit. So moving on to week 15. And week 15, I wrote down, this is the week that I felt like I was beginning to pop. This is the week that I felt like my clothes were getting a lot tighter. I couldn't really hide the bump anymore. I was feeling a little bit uncomfortable in certain clothes. And I think this is the beginning of me browsing online for maternity wear. So this was quite exciting. And when my partner saw me stand sideways, so profile view, he definitely thought he could see the bump. It was quite obvious at this point. Other things to mention, during week 15 I felt quite breathless. When I was walking my dog out for his morning, afternoon and evening walk, I'd be out of breath. I'd have to take it quite slow, take it easy on myself. I also experienced some nosebleeds in the middle of the night. Though when I say nosebleeds, it wasn't like bleeding as such. It was more the fact that I'd wake up in the morning and I'd find dried, crusted blood in my nose. Not very nice. But it wasn't like a big bleed in any way. There was like no blood on my pillowcases or anything like that. Generally speaking, I don't really get nosebleeds, but I definitely noticed the dry nose and the dry blood in my nose each morning. I also experience sensitive and sore gums. On occasion during my week 15, I would be brushing my teeth morning or night, and there would be blood. I'd be spitting out blood after brushing. I am very conscious of trying to not brush too hard on my gums, just because I know that they're quite sensitive anyway. Moving on to week 16, I was beginning to get better sleep. So waking up and going to the toilet, but for the duration that I was asleep, it was like a good solid deep sleep. I felt quite rested when I woke up in the mornings during this week. My lower back pain continued, and I was really feeling quite sick at the beginning of the week, at the beginning of my week 16, which was for me Monday and Tuesday. But then the sickness, the nausea kind of eased off towards the end of the week. And I was quite surprised by this. I didn't realise that pregnancy nausea is something that kind of comes and goes in waves. So some days or some weeks you might just feel it more than others. I thought initially that it was like a set period where from this week to that week you'd get it really bad and then you'll be over it and you wouldn't experience nausea again for the rest of your pregnancy. But it's not really like that. It kind of comes in waves, and as mentioned, some days are worse than others. Some days you might go days and days without feeling sick, which is what happened to me, and then some days it will just hit you again out of the blue when you thought you were out of the woods. The breathlessness continued, so again I kind of just made sure to take it slow, take my walks a bit slower, and just take it easy on myself, not push myself too hard. So for me, week 17, I definitely wrote down, no doubt, definitely popped. So I think there was definitely probably a growth spurt from week 15 where I kind of initially pointed out, oh, I think I'm popping, to week 17 where I wrote down definitely popped. There must have been a growth spurt. My clothes had begun to feel very tight at this point, which if you think about it, it's only 2.5 weeks difference. It's surprising how much something can change or how much you can feel so different within a short time frame. My jeans were getting very tight, so if I was wearing my normal jeans, pre-pregnancy jeans, in the car driving, and I was driving for like an hour, 2 hours, I'd really noticed that the waistband was digging in to my stomach at this point. And so I definitely was going out to buy maternity clothes, but I was very cautious not to buy too many maternity clothes because obviously it's something that you're not going to be wearing for a long duration. Obviously you're going to wear it up into your labour and then probably for the first couple of months, I'm assuming, post-labour. But yes, I ended up investing in 2 pairs of over-the-bump leggings, which I thought was quite handy because they're stretchy. I could wear them winter and summer. And then I bought a 3-pack of t-shirts, maternity t-shirts, black, grey and white. Can't go wrong with your staple colours. And both items were from ASOS actually, and they were multi-packs. So those are all the maternity clothes that I've gotten to date. I just thought that I wanted some classic pieces where I can mix and match and layer if I need to, but more importantly, were comfortable and fit my ever-growing body. So that was fun to go shopping for those. And then the other couple of things I felt were my nipples and my breasts were getting a little bit sore, getting a bit heavier and more tender. Again, I think I mentioned in my first trimester video that I had swapped from wearing a normal bra with like molded cups and underwire, you're going out bras basically. I'd swapped from wearing those to a more bralette styled bra where it allowed me to be a bit more comfortable, allowed a bit more stretch in the rib cage area. So I just continued wearing those bras through my second trimester, and they really helped. It's just a little bit more give, and bear in mind we're all at home with COVID and everything. It's absolutely fine to be wearing. So moving on to week number 18. Week 18 I experienced a little bit of headaches. I don't know if I was a bit dehydrated this week, but I was experiencing a little bit of headaches and blurred vision. It's similar blurred vision to what you get before a migraine. Typically I don't get migraines, but I do get blurry vision sometimes if I've just been looking at something or watching TV too much, or sometimes if I'm just overtired. Nothing that was too persistent or too severe in any way. It kind of came and went throughout the day, but it was fine on the whole. My lower back pain persisted, again as mentioned, with your body changing and hormones changing in your body as well. Lower back pain was a thing. And this was the week I wouldn't know if I say it was a craving as such, but I definitely was enjoying my breakfast meals. So I was having cereal milk for every day that week. I really was craving, you could say craving I guess, craving cereal milk. And I think if it was up to me and I could have it like 3 times a day, every day for that week, I probably would have. Probably not very nutritional, but it was definitely a breakfast meal that I was really excited to have each morning. Just something so simple, milk and cereal. And then this was also the week number 18, where I experienced some pain in my coccyx. So I feel like this is not really mentioned that much in other videos when I've seen other women post videos, but coccyx pain, or not even lower back pain, but like your tailbone at the end of your spine hurting, and that was very much a real thing for me. I experienced coccyx pain towards the end of the week, and it was like slight twinges initially, but I didn't think too much of it. But it got worse and worse and worse as I entered into the following week, which I'll jump into now. So week number 19, previous to this week, I had been doing prenatal yoga and Pilates, some core work, doing some core work, some weight training, and that was all fine. But then when my coccyx pain started, it was so painful. It was like this shooting, nervy, electrifying pain in my coccyx, which is right at the bottom of your tailbone, bottom of your spine, and it hurt so much to the point that I ended up crying on the floor on my yoga mat in the middle of just doing some exercises at home, prenatal exercises at home, and I just didn't know what to do. So I ended up going to my GP, made an appointment, and they said essentially it's just something that some pregnant women experience. It's not anything that they can do. They can't give any medicine for it. They suggested that I just take it easy, stop the exercise, and hopefully it will kind of work itself out, or at least the pain will ease a little bit. Which was not exactly what I wanted to hear, because I was really wanting to continue with my exercise. I wanted to stay active, I wanted to stay fit and all of that. So being told to not move as much, and actually I was advised not to even walk my dog, but I wanted to, because I think getting out 3 times a day, having some fresh air is super important. But actually it turned out that lessening my exercise, reducing what I was doing around the house or how much I was moving, taking it easy, really did actually help. And then towards the end of that week, my coccyx pain had gotten significantly better, which was great, because as mentioned, when it was really bad, when it was really inflamed, I was just in tears and I just didn't know what to do. So it took about a week to resolve itself, but if you do experience it, definitely talk to a doctor, a GP, get it checked out, make sure it's nothing more serious. But yeah, that was definitely something I'm going to remember from this pregnancy, and something that was very, very painful. Moving on, continuing with week number 19. At this point I was feeling less sick, probably half the day I was feeling a bit sick. So this tended to be probably late afternoon and evening meals. My evening meals were always an issue for me, and I felt like I just had a loss of appetite. I'd be eating a favourite dish that I had prepared and I'd get a quarter, maybe even a halfway through it, and then I'd just lose all appetite and I'd just end up just pushing my food across my plate until my partner had finished, and then we could just wash up and continue with our evening. So that wasn't great because I just wasn't hungry at all. And I noticed that I definitely wasn't probably putting on as much weight as I could have been or should have been in pregnancy. When you look at those growth charts that you get in your maternity notes, I was definitely falling below that curve, but it wasn't through lack of trying to eat. I just couldn't swallow any food down or anything. So moving on to week number 20, I was feeling quite tired. I was needing to use the bathroom a lot through the night at this point, so I was getting a lot of interrupted sleep, waking up through the night constantly. But what was exciting about week 20 was that I had some feelings of twinges in my lower abdomen, and at the time I didn't know what they were. I thought, oh, this is odd. I think for me, the best way that I could describe it is that it felt like bubbles popping. When you research this online, some women refer to this kind of feeling, which is essentially the baby moving and your uterus kind of growing, as like butterflies in your stomach. I didn't really feel that kind of butterfly effect. For me, it was just like the odd bubbles popping sensation in my lower abdomen, and it was quite exciting. Like I said, at first I didn't know what it was, so I had to Google it, but after knowing what it was exciting because you actually feel the baby move for the first time, and that was definitely something which you're not, if it's your first pregnancy, I guess, like me, it's something that you're not aware it's happening, or you're not quite sure what it was that you're feeling, but at the same time it does bring a smile to your face because you know that it's happening, something's happening, you can feel it now. I was also beginning to experience some leg cramping through the night. Again, it's quite a common thing that pregnant women experience. They're not sure if it's the weight of the baby just kind of sitting on certain nerves on the legs, or you're just carrying more weight now throughout the day, that in the evening when your legs are resting that they kind of cramp up. But there was definitely 1 or 2 nights when I woke up and I jumped out of bed and I had to stretch out my calves, stretch out my legs, because I was just cramping, and that's quite painful. So moving on to the following week, in week 21, I was feeling cold. I don't know why, there was just something, and it wasn't even that cold weather-wise, I just felt cold to the bone a lot of the week, and the only thing that would warm me up would be like a hot shower or like a warm bath, because you can't take hot baths. I was just feeling very cold, very tired. I don't know if my body was just generally run down a little bit at this point, but it wasn't something that stayed for long. It was just like something that I noticed during that week, a couple of days in that week. I also found that I couldn't sleep very well during this week. I was tossing and turning, and it could be to do all interlinked with just not feeling very well overall. The other things I felt were cravings for sweet things. I actually went out and bought a huge bag of Haribo giant straws, which I love anyway. But I just felt like I really just needed some comfort food, some sweet things, some jellies. So I went out and got them and devoured them all. So that was something, that was probably a craving for week number 21 that I had. So moving on to week number 22, I actually started my exercise routine again after having a couple weeks break from the coccyx pain, and I noticed that my leg muscles, my ab muscles were all a bit tired, but I think that's just the same as if you were to take a break from exercising, pregnant or not. When you kind of reintroduce that exercise and that routine back into your day, your muscles are just kind of remembering what they had to do. So yeah, I had some just muscle aches, but again, nothing serious. Something also I noticed was that when I went to bed at night, or when I woke up in the morning, my watch strap was a bit tight. So what I tended to do before going to sleep was actually loosen it one notch, and that was better. Couldn't tell you about rings, because as soon as I found out I was pregnant, I kind of pretty much took my rings off, because I didn't want my rings to get stuck on my fingers. So I don't know if my fingers are swollen, but my wrists were definitely a little bit swollen. In the mornings especially, they kind of went down to normal size, and I was then wearing my watch on my normal watch settings for the remainder of the day. It's just, like I mentioned, in the morning when I first woke up. Week 22 was a bit of a scary week. I had felt a reduction in movement of the baby. So when you go online and you watch the week by week videos of pregnancy, which are really informative, they say that your baby should be moving, you should be counting kicks, 10 kicks for 2 hours in your day. But it was over the weekend, and I remember not feeling any movements, which was obviously a panic and a worry for my partner and I. And then we called up the maternity unit in our local hospital, and they suggested that we come straight in. They didn't do a scan, but they did have a listen with the Doppler for the heartbeat, just to make sure that the heartbeat was still there. And thank goodness it was. It just put our mind at ease. Even though we didn't see a scan, I didn't really need to see a scan. I just needed to know that the baby was still breathing, it was still alive. What was interesting was that when I spoke to the midwife, they said at week 22, it's very unusual for there to be a definite pattern of movement at this stage, because still considered quite early on in the pregnancy, even though you've passed the halfway mark. And so the midwife said it's not something that they would think was unusual, which is very different from what the other videos, the week by week videos that I watch online say. They always say you should be counting 10 kicks in a 2-hour period, etc., etc. So it's interesting how different information is given for that week, even though you think that you're doing your best, you're researching, you're trying to be informed, but you can just be told something so different. But it was fine, everything was fine, the baby's safe. The heartbeat, it was a strong heartbeat that they measured when I went into the maternity unit, and then after listening to the heartbeat, and then she did a urine test. They always do a urine test. They just sent us on our way, and so that was absolutely fine. So, and then actually a day later, the baby was moving, and moving quite a bit actually, kind of making up for the last 2 days where it hadn't moved. So it's just one of those things. But if in doubt, always ring up your maternity unit or your midwife and get checked out. It's not worth not finding out, to be sure. I think in the UK we're always so worried about wasting people's time or feeling silly asking these questions, but at the end of the day, it's super important for you to just be reassured and know that everything's okay. So moving on to week 23, my coccyx pain returned, but it was only for like half a day. It was nothing as bad as when I first experienced it. It was nothing like that. So I think in this week I just kind of took some paracetamol, which you're allowed to take in pregnancy. Took some paracetamol and I was absolutely fine. It didn't hurt anyway as bad as it did before, and then it just didn't return for the rest of the week. So it was absolutely fine. It was just like a blip in my day, in my week, but it was fine. I was still feeling very tired. I was beginning to nap now in the late afternoons when I could, just because, as mentioned, feeling tired throughout the day and having interrupted sleep all the time, it was tough. And I just got to, especially over the weekends, I'd get to 3-4 o'clock in the afternoon and I'd be so tired. So I'd just have to lie down and take a rest, take a nap. Kind of following up from baby movements, it was that I was beginning to see a bit more of a pattern in terms of baby movements. For me, this was mostly in the evening after dinner, and especially after eating anything sweet. So my partner and I will tend to have a little treat after dinner. We definitely felt the baby wriggle and move a lot more after some sugar, after I've had some sugar. So that was good. And also this was the week that my partner felt the baby move for the first time. So when the baby was moving after dinner in the evenings, I put his hand on my belly and he felt like mild movements. And he was really excited because up until this point he hadn't really felt anything. He hadn't felt the baby move at all. So it was nice that it was something that we could share together. Week 24, again, just a couple of headaches that I experienced. Again, mentioned of the swollen wrists. My breasts felt a bit heavier. As mentioned, I've been wearing these bralettes and like sports bras, so that's fine. But definitely did feel that they had felt a bit more tender, swollen, heavier is the actual word that I wrote down here. And this was the week I actually felt a bit more forgetful. So I think people mention, what's the phrase? Baby brain, pregnancy brain. Yeah, that was a bit annoying. Quite funny, but quite annoying at the same time. But as mentioned, it didn't last for too long. I felt like, again, that was something that kind of came in waves. And I didn't really experience it that much in my second trimester at all. It was just that 1 week, week 24, I kind of really did notice, oh, I keep on forgetting things. But I did notice that if I had my phone on me, if I quickly noted down certain things, shopping lists, things to do, that really helped. So if you're in the same boat, make lists, post-it notes, write it down, and that will help for sure. So moving on to week 25, sickness kind of came back a little bit. Again, it's more so dinner time. It's always the dinner time that really affects me. And really kind of just makes me off my food completely. But week 25, I definitely noticed this. I noticed that my belly was beginning to grow and stretch, and because of the skin stretching, it felt a bit itchy. So this is also the week that I started lathering up on all the ointments and the creams and the oils in hoping that it prevents the stretch marks. I'm not sure if it does. A lot of people say it's hereditary, and if that's the case, then there's not a lot I can do about that. But hopefully, I don't know, it makes me feel better knowing that I tried something at least. Moving on to week 26, I noticed that I had a slightly better appetite. I was beginning to sleep a bit better. I think the weather had started to cool down slightly, and so I was getting just a better rest throughout the night. My forgetfulness was still lurking around. I'd forget things, still feeling very tired still, very sleepy. I was beginning to fall asleep quite early in the evenings, about like 9 o'clock. I'd be like napping on the couch, and my partner would be like, go upstairs, go to bed, go to bed. And then moving on to my very last week of the second trimester, so that's week number 27. there was nothing really to report on this week. It's kind of a dull week. It's still the continuation of the breathlessness, a bit of asthma, wheeziness. Felt tired, going to the toilet frequently throughout the night. And that was really the main things to talk about. So that is my week by week summary of my second trimester. Something I wanted to cover off was my Anomaly Scan, also known as like the halfway scan. So it usually happens around about week 20. I had my scan on week 21, dead on week 21. So I was like a day late essentially, which is fine. It was quite similar to the dating scan in terms of the sonographer will have a list of things that they check through, and that will include things like the baby's face that they will scan for and take measurements of, the femur bone. They'll check the limbs, the forelimbs, the toes, fingers, the heart, the chambers of the heart. They'll look at how the blood circulates and make sure that there's nothing out of the ordinary. They also looked for things in the liver, kidneys, the stomach, the abdomen, the brain, the hemispheres of the brain. And so they do a really thorough checklist, and they take down, as mentioned, all the measurements, and from certain things they calculate if your baby is growing according to the growth charts, where it is in terms of gestational period and weight or size that they think it is, what percentile it is, and they look into all these things. So the appointment for me lasted about 25, maybe 30 minutes. There was some things where the sonographer was trying to scan and get measurements of, but the baby was lying in an awkward angle. And so what the sonographer did was pass that one and go to the next thing on the checklist, and then right at the end they hoped that the baby had moved, or in my case the sonographer was tapping on my belly trying to get the baby to move position slightly so they could get a more detailed scan or get the measurements that they required for that checklist. So it is quite a long appointment, but it's amazing to see. And we had a big screen at the top of the ceiling, really, not on the ceiling, but like near the top of the ceiling, top of the wall, and we saw the baby, and it's amazing to see actually how different the scans look from your dating scan, where it's so small still and it doesn't quite look like a baby yet, to the 20-week scan, the Anomaly Scan, where you can actually begin to see the entire rib cage, and you can see the spine, and you can see like the profile of the baby's head and the nose, and how the lips kind of junt out and things like that. So it's really interesting that, yeah, there's a little human growing inside of me, and it's really quite easy to make out. And then at the end of that appointment, you go home, and they send you home with some pictures, some scan pictures. So here are my scan pictures. I've got 4. Really happy about these. Actually, saying that, the first 2 photos or 2 scans that they took, these 2, I wasn't overly impressed with, because I think that they were really blurred and you can't really see that well. Don't know if you can see. So here you can see the baby. I don't know what that is, if that's like an arm or a leg, or if that's like the placenta. But you can see the stomach and the face, but it's a bit of a fuzzy photo, so I wasn't overly happy with that. But these 2 photos, which is part of the same batch, the scan, you can see the footprint and the little toes, which I really liked. I found that quite amusing, that you could actually make out the foot quite clearly. And also the very last photo, so you can see the profile of the baby's face, or the baby's head, I should say. So you can see the nose, the little button nose, and the mouth. You can see the the ribs or the rib cage, the bones on them. And yeah, that's just, baby's taking shape, baby's growing, which is all that you want to hear. It's growing, it's safe, it's healthy. So really excited. It just kind of brings us a little step closer, I guess, to meeting the little one. And that essentially wraps up today's video. So I hope you found it informative and entertaining, enjoyable. Give me a thumbs up, make sure you subscribe, click on that bell notification so that you get notified on when I'm posting new videos up. But I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye!